In this video, we're going to learn about the different types of bonds and also learn about their payoffs. If you were to Google the different types of bonds, you'd get about 559 million odd results. Now, of course, that's not to say that there's that many different types of bonds, but nevertheless, you will be bombarded with a barrage of different types of bonds. Here's the interesting thing though. Although there can be dime a dozen different variations of these bonds, the fact is that most, if not all, bonds are variations of three different types of bonds. If you know these three types of bonds, then you can pretty much deal with any other variation of bonds. And the same goes when it comes to valuing bonds as well. If you can value these three types of bonds, the ones you're going to learn in this course, then you'll be able to value pretty much any other type of bond, because they all inevitably end up deriving themselves from these three types of bonds. We've got straight or vanilla bonds, zero coupon bonds, and consols, aka perpetual bonds. This is going to be the focus of this course. We're going to go deep into each and every one of these and learn how to value them from scratch. For now though, let's just learn a little more about what these are and what their payoff timelines look like. Starting with straight or vanilla bonds then, these are your standard or typical bonds that pay a series of coupons followed by a par at maturity. Remember, at the very start of this course, when we introduced bonds, we said that some bonds pay interest and the lump sum payment, others only pay interest, and still others only pay the lump sum. Straight or vanilla bonds are the ones that pay both. So they pay you coupons every year, or every 6 months, or every 3 months, depending on the frequency of payoffs, and they do that consistently up until maturity, where they'll give you the par value. If we think about the timeline for a straight bond, at year 0, you would pay a price P to buy this bond, and every year thereafter, up until year N, you're going to get these coupons, or C, every year consistently up until maturity, and at maturity, as at the year N, you'll also get this par value. So you've got the price P that you pay at year 0, and of course you can buy the bond sort of any other time as well, and you would just pay the price to buy it. And once you've bought it, you become entitled to the payoffs from the bond. So you'll earn these coupon payments every year or every period, and you'll also earn the par value at the bond's maturity date. If we look at the same timeline with some numbers, then a 10-year bond would look something like this. You'd have the price of, say, $1,125, and in exchange you'd get these coupons of $50 every year for the next 10 years, and at the end of the 10th year you'll also get this $1,000 par value. Now, $1,000 is pretty typical for American bonds. Most US bonds tend to have a par value of $1,000. In the UK, bonds tend to have a par value of £100. The exact value for this par will vary from country to country, but the fact is, no matter where you are on this planet, if you're dealing with a straight or vanilla bond, you're going to earn these coupons every year or every period until maturity, and at the date of maturity, you'll get this par value. Now let's think about zero coupon bonds. As the name suggests, these bonds don't pay any coupons. In other words, they pay coupons equal to 0, hence the name zero coupon bonds. Now, given that they don't pay any coupons, they only pay the par at maturity. So a zero coupon bond is an example of a bond that only pays the lump sum that we talked about at the beginning. Now, if we think about the timeline for a zero coupon bond, we can actually derive it quite nicely by starting with the traditional bond, or the straight bond. Here's the straight bond timeline again. We know that for a zero coupon bond, C is equal to 0 because they don't pay any coupons, so the coupon is equal to 0. So with a coupon equal to 0, the timeline looks like this. You still have the price that you pay at year 0, and every year you're going to get 0 because it doesn't pay any coupons, and at year N, which is when the bond matures, you'll get this par value. So this timeline essentially simplifies because all of this goes away, so you end up with something like this. You've got the price at year 0, which you pay to earn this par value at year N. And that's pretty much it. So we've now looked at the kind of bond that pays the interest as well as the lump sum. That was the straight bond or the vanilla bond. And we've looked at the timeline for a bond that pays just the par and doesn't pay any coupons. Now let's consider a bond that only pays coupons. This is what we call a consol. So consols pay a series of coupons, but they do so forever. In other words, they pay coupons indefinitely. They might have a theoretical par value, but this is never repaid because the bond just continues paying coupons every year forever. So if it does have this theoretical par value, it'll pay you that par value in the year infinity, whenever that is, when we're all dead and gone. So in essence, the par value for a console doesn't really matter, even if it does actually exist. Now, given the very definition of a console, this simple definition, no company in their right mind would issue this kind of a security. In the past, governments have issued consoles, so they are still relevant to some extent. Let's just take a quick look at the timeline for a console then. You'd still pay the price P in year 0 or whenever you buy the bond, and in exchange you're going to get coupons every year or every period forever. So this just continues perpetually. And that's pretty much it. Hopefully that makes sense. In summary, we learned that there are 3 types of bonds, including straight or vanilla bonds, zero coupon bonds, as well as consoles, aka perpetual bonds. We learned that straight or vanilla bonds are those that pay a series of coupons followed by a par at maturity. Remember, this is the kind of bond that pays the interest as well as the lump sum. Then we learned that zero coupon bonds, or ZCBs, only pay a par at maturity. Again, this is the kind of bond that only pays the lump sum. Finally, we learned that consoles, aka perpetual bonds, pay a series of coupons forever. Of course, this is the bond that only pays interest, so it never pays a par. We're going to be dealing with these 3 bonds quite extensively throughout the course, and like I said, if you know how to value these 3 different types of bonds, then you pretty much know how to value any other type of bond. Because as diverse as their names might be, and as varied as their so-called features might be, ultimately they all derive themselves from these 3. So the essence of any bond can find its root in these 3 different types of bonds. That's enough from me for now. Have a go at the quiz, and I'll see you in the next video.